James from Sky, would you like to kick things off for us?
Yeah, it's good to see you. Let's start with the news of Amanda Illuster, if I don't mind asking you. How you feeling about it? How's she doing? And what's the reaction of the players?
Really happy for her and her partner Reiner's sake, of course. And I think that's a feeling that is shared with the whole team. Everyone is really happy, excited by the news for her, and as a club, we're really committed to help her the best way possible through the whole journey, both here up until giving birth, and then of course after to return to play.
It's difficult for players to approach that because obviously we know it's going to mean she's going to be taking time out of her job for some time. It must be quite difficult, tricky for players. I
hope not, and I think to have a child, it's maybe the biggest blessing that you can have in life to it, and it should be special, and I think it shouldn't be anything where you never should think that you shouldn't be able to be entitled to that, or to be entitled to that happiness. So for me and the club, that's a very easy standpoint to have, and I hope that a player like Amanda now that she feels that as well.
Great to hear. Any other concerns? I know the Gold Cup players are back in training. Any injury doubts at all heading into tomorrow?
No, they've returned very well, which is very pleasing. And we come from a situation where we looked a little bit shallow here a couple of weeks ago with squad depth, until looking much more with more competition on much more positions, which is very pleasing.
Let's talk about the game. Arsenal-Chelsea doesn't really get any bigger than that, even bigger knowing what it could mean, moving level on points at the top of the table. For you personally, what do this rivalry, what do these games mean to you?
For me, the games when you play against another top team at a good occasion for it, that's one of the reasons why I love working at football on this level. It's going to bring out the best out of both teams. Margins, details, they are going to matter. We will need to fight so hard for every inch to try and get competitive advantage in the game. And everything we will do will matter for it. And I honestly love that.
What's your memories of the game in December? Was that the best performance you've seen from your side since arriving at the club?
It's one of the better ones. As I said before, I think we've had a few of those really, really good performances in the last 2 seasons. But I'm under no illusion we will need to get a performance like that again on Friday to be able to win the game.
Your messaging before you played Manchester United, you said you had a really clear message to your players, and it was 825 days. You were drilling that in to your players. What's been your message to the players this week?
Focusing on what we need to do. Some games requires external motivations. In some games the motivation is already there, and you just need to focus on the process.
And finally, tough question probably. If you lose, is that the title race over?
I don't think like that. It's not a thought that's in my head. The only thought that is in my head is, what do we need to do in order to maximize our way to win the game? And that's where 100% of my focus is on.
Thanks, Jonas.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Tim?
Jonas, first of all, the last time Arsenal had a player on maternity leave, they didn't re-register her properly and got docked 3 points and lost Champions League qualification. So just a note for 9 months' time.
Yeah, I'm going to tell Holly that so she doesn't miss it, definitely. Thanks.
I guess another one on an admin note on that. I believe there's a WSL rule that you're allowed to buy outside or get a player outside the transfer window if a player goes on maternity leave. Is that something that Arsenal will look into?
Yeah, I actually think it's a FIFA regulation that you're allowed to do that, and I mean it's all very new for us. I think it's great that you have that option to go outside the transfer window, because to relate to the question earlier, how do you make it easier for players and clubs to have situations like this? This is definitely one of them, to not be restricted by a transfer window, but it's still, of course, very difficult at the time, because a club that would release a player to us wouldn't have the same option to be able to release that in a chain reaction, which makes it very, very tough to get any club to realistically want to release a player with being at the business end of the season.
And can I ask about for an update on Laura Wienreuter and whether she's close to being available?
Yes, she's progressing very nice, and I would imagine, if everything goes to plan, that she would start being available at the end of this block for squad selection.
And can I ask just a final question about Chelsea? And I guess I look at them and I feel like they're going through something similar to what Arsenal were maybe going through this time last year, with loss of key players and having to adapt and change. I definitely think they're perhaps focusing a bit more on being compact and solid at the moment, whether that's out of necessity. How do you view how things have changed for them over the last couple of months?
It's definitely harder to predict their starting lineup than it was 2 seasons ago. They have managed a situation with a lot of injuries and unavailable players, with having a very, very big squad depth, and being able to strengthen on short notice as well, which I think it's a strengthening sign for them to be able to do those businesses within that short notice, and are ready to invest in that moment. But as I said, it's hard to predict their starting lineup, and that obviously then comes to the thing about relationships and spending time together, and then to your observation to being, when you are in that period, you might have to focus on some of the more basic principles rather than details. And I think you see a very, very good team, Chelsea, but they are focusing on those principles naturally, because that's where they are with the relationships at the moment. And yeah, it's just the state of things.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Art.
Hi, Jonas. Slightly more serious. One of the big stories over the past week in WSL is the manager who was suspended for allegedly having a relationship with a player. We're asking all the WSL managers about the issue, so I was just wondering your thoughts on relationships between coaches and players, and if it's something you feel is a big issue in the women's game.
I think it's very inappropriate for a number of reasons to it, but no, I think it's a clear no with relationship between player and manager. I think if you look in women's football, I think when you look in the past, and there's no doubt, if you look and you read the NWSL, for example, reports, there is major issues within the game. And there have been major issues at the game in the past as well, which probably, unfortunately, tells you that there still are issues at some places for it. And that concerns me from a player welfare perspective. And I absolutely think that governing bodies, leagues, clubs, associations needs to be strong on that. Because I do think it's very inappropriate, and I think it goes out over the player welfare, which is very, very sad.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's something that you would be able to fix individually, but when you mention governing bodies and stuff like that, is it more of a safeguarding thing that they'd be able to maybe implement, do you feel?
Yeah, I think it's in most situations where it would be do you have whistleblower mechanisms in place? What different ways of communicating do you have if you feel that inappropriate things are going on in the environment that you are in? Or are you in a closed environment where you feel like, no, I don't have any good way out of this here. And that's just to making sure that players in this instance have the relevant communication ways to be able to report if anything inappropriate going on. And I mean, that could be an inappropriate relationship, but it could also be other things. I think that's safeguarding and making sure that people are safe.
Yeah, in terms of football, I was just wondering, what are the kind of challenges that crop up when you're playing Aston Villa and Chelsea twice within the space of a few weeks of each other? Because if I think back to last season, I think it was Manchester City in the Conti Cup and then in the league within the space of a few days. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt maybe in the first game you maybe showed your hand a little bit. So what's kind of the challenge to maybe not do that this time around?
Yeah, I think the City game was a little bit different because it was so short in time as well. I think we went to extra time in the Conti Cup there for under 20 minutes, and then 2 days later we travelled up to Manchester. I think that was a lot of physical factors going into that game. But I mean, this is what we do in Europe in knockout stages all the time. We play an opponent. We need to learn from the first game. We need to take that into account into the second game, but also constantly thinking about what did they learn? What are they happy with from the first game? What are they not happy with? And I think that's really the interesting thing with that, to understand what you would like to adapt, but also to understand what are they going to adapt, to understand how they think. And hopefully we have a good idea about that, so we can have a real advantage about playing the team the first time. But I don't believe in having too many secrets to it. We're not on that level where we can say that we can only be 90% in the first game in order to be 100% in the second game. Now we need to be at our very best in both these games.
Thanks, Art. Beth.
Hi Jonas, how are you?
I'm good.
Something that I wanted to ask about is, we've seen Alessia Russo take on a little bit of a different role at the moment, for example, maybe against Aston Villa, playing a little bit more on the wing. Just wondered, is that something we can expect to see more of?
At times, yeah, but our priority and her main position is as a 9. But always in teams there will come scenarios and situations where we can use that. And I think one thing that is obvious when you use a player like Alessia, for example, on a wide forward, is that you have a really strong player coming in and crossing situations from the other side. And if that's what's on against an opponent, that might be a really, really good option to use in that game. And I think that's how we need to use the squad, to be able to use them in the right moments and putting them in the situations and positions that they are most effective in.
Thank you. For the last few days, I've seen a lot of rumours surrounding Daphne van Domselaar. Is that something that you'd like to comment on at all, or not quite yet?
No, and it has nothing to do with her. It has more to do with me and not commenting on any individual externally. So no comments.
Makes sense. And finally, just the one more question from me. Obviously, last time out against Chelsea at the Emirates was pretty amazing for players, fans, for everyone. What are your thoughts on how important that away fan support is going to be, given how strong it was at the Emirates? How much do you think that could help going into such an important game?
Oh, so important. Our fans been lifting us through the whole season, home and away, and we hear them, and we hear every single one of them. And to hear that we've been selling out our away allocation at Stamford Bridge here on Friday, it's amazing. And let's hope we can create something special together with them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Diana at the back then?
Yes. This is the last game for Emma Hayes at Stamford Bridge for the WSL. Can you say one thing that you miss and one thing that you won't miss about your rivalry with her?
Oh, that's question I wasn't prepared for. I hope I won't be able to miss that. I think Emma is a very, very intelligent person to have conversation with both about the game, and I've really enjoyed those conversation when I met her when it's not been on the sidelines. And I think that's some part that sometimes you miss, because you see something as a rivalry, because you have two managers that really want to win with their respective teams to it, and of course that's how it should be. Doesn't mean that you can't communicate and you can't learn and exchange ideas outside. So hopefully I won't miss that. Hopefully I can still be able to do that when she's at our other role to it. And to be honest, I really then probably what I am gonna miss is the competition. I really like to compete. It's never easy against a team that she will coach, because they will always be flexible. They will always have a plan for any scenarios and an instance, and they will have players that will be so dedicated to trying to win the game. And as I said before, I just like the challenge of that, to be playing against the bests. So that's probably what I'm gonna miss.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Got a couple of minutes left, so we'll just take Chris Slade from BBC London on the call.
Hey Jonas, thanks for your time. Just a couple of questions. We're talking about the atmosphere there at the big games, at the big grounds. Do you think we're at the stage where you'd like to see every WSL game now played at a Premier League ground, as we still refer to it?
I'm really happy when I see a game like this on Friday being played at Stamford Bridge, and seeing the number of tickets sold for it, because I really think that what we have done at Arsenal and playing more and more games at Emirates and the attendances there, that has been absolutely phenomenal. But where we want to go as a league, and to your question to it, we will need more and more clubs investing in that journey, investing in getting the games played at grounds with more attendances and filling those seats as well. So I think that's great. The more clubs that will be able to do that, the better the league will be. And that's going to be good for all participating clubs in the league.
And lastly, obviously, if you beat them 4-1 before Christmas, that's a good sign. But if you were to lose this one, you'd be 6 points behind with just 6 games to play. Do you think it's crucial? It might not be a must-win. Is this a game that you just simply can't afford to lose if you're going to keep your title hopes alive?
I had an interesting observation when I was watching the penalty shootout against Arsenal and Porto a couple of days ago. And that was that after the final whistle on extra time, there was 2 very different approaches on the 2 goalkeepers for it. So the Arsenal goalkeeper was taking a seat on the bench together with the goalkeeper coach, and they were reviewing footage of what to expect from the Porto penalty takers, and they were focusing on that. I saw the Porto goalkeeper was inside the team huddle, getting high fives from 25 different team members, getting hugs and wishes of best of luck. The intention in both ways to it is obviously to be successful and to be supported. What I believe in is doing things that will help your process to it. And for me to hope for a win, or to think about, what happens if we don't win, it's not going to help me. But if I focus on the process, just like Raya and his coach was focusing on the process and the relevant information in order to do it, I think that increases your chance of winning. So that's where I choose to put my focus in front of that game.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, everyone.